Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Today, I talked to Washington long snapper Nick Sundberg. He has a newborn baby, which we discuss, but also how he managed to play through a torn right triceps. Hint, he broke one of his own rules to do so. His thoughts on Alex Smith. If you listen to Nick, you'll understand why having Smith around extended way beyond the stats, as I have often said. And Nick and I discussed spring workouts, why we probably will have another virtual spring. Nick was great, as always. Entertaining, too. You can follow him on Twitter at Nick Sundberg, and don't forget, you can also support his Loads of Love program, which has helped countless schools and people in the area. You can read my work on ESPN.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at JohnKimeESPN. I have a story on ESPN.com right now. It's a timeline of Alex Smith's last few years, the journey that he's gone on. Sometimes it's just a good reminder of what the guy went through, kind of culminating in his release the other day. If you like the show, please do me a favor, go give it a rating, I guess on Apple or wherever you can rate it. If you have some feedback you want to give me, I'm available on Twitter, on social media, on Instagram, as I just said. Hit me up there on Twitter. It's at John_Kime. If there's something you want to see more of, let me know. Happy to take anything into consideration. One thing to keep in mind this week as we move forward, Tuesday is the deadline to apply the franchise tag on a player. That means if Washington doesn't get a deal worked out with Brendan Sheriff, that the tag remains a strong option. I was told the other day that there is hope when it comes to a long-term deal. But yes, the tag is absolutely in play if nothing happens, even if it's going to be around $18 million for 1 year. They want to keep Sheriff, but as I told you before, his side has turned down past offers. I don't know the structure of those deals, so I don't want to comment if it was a good decision or not, or good offer or not. I've heard at various times in the past that they were close. Yet, here we are, still no deal as of this taping. All I know is there is still hope for a long-term deal. Meanwhile, with the investigation, I know the Junkies created a stir the other day by releasing info from what they said was one page of the Beth Wilkinson report. On there, it included recommended punishment by Wilkinson, or at least by the findings. Part of the punishment, we talked about possible forcing him to sell the team, or if nothing else, a suspension and a fine. Here's what I know. The league called it false, that they don't have the report. I asked the league, when you say it's false, are you saying that the entire information is false, or just that you don't have the report? The response, quote, everything is false. We haven't received the report yet. End of quote. Now, of course, if they haven't seen the report or received the report, then I think it may be hard to know all that's in there, but I don't know. Now, let me make it clear. I'm not knocking the Junkies report. I'm not saying anything one way or another. I'm just telling you as a reporter what I know. As a reporter, that's all I can do. And in a case like this, if you can't verify it, you really shouldn't be saying a whole lot. But that's just my philosophy. Also, I talked to some other sources who said the attorneys aren't supposed to recommend punishment. They provide the report and the commissioner decides the punishment. Now, in this case, in Washington's case, I don't know what the arrangement is. I don't know what they were tasked to do. Maybe they did say that. I've tried to find that out. Maybe they did say, give us your recommended punishment. I don't know. I'm just telling you that what some people have told me, and then I'm going to give you some examples of some other investigations. I saw the Ray Rice report from a few years ago. There were recommendations, but not about punishment. It was about how the NFL could better handle it from their end. He had already been suspended indefinitely by the league. I know when Mary Jo White investigated Carolina, she did not recommend punishment. But by the time she was finished with the report, the Panthers had already been sold. All of her recommendations focused on improving workplace culture, preventing these situations from arising again. And like I said, I say all this because even if the report that the Junkies said they had, even if it includes recommendations, it's almost assuredly irrelevant. It's Roger Goodell who decides the punishment, not attorneys investigating the situation. That has been my knowledge. If that changes, I'll let you know, because I have reached out to a few other people to see that. And that, again, I don't know what Beth Wilkinson was, if Goodell said, give me the investigation and what you would recommend. I don't know that he said that. I don't know that he didn't say that. But anyways, this is what I know from past situations and from some people I've talked to. But in other words, stay tuned. I know when I had John Clayton on the podcast last week, he echoed what I have heard from others. Nothing that has publicly been divulged yet had risen to the level of forcing Dan Snyder out. Other owners could be reluctant unless something directly implicates him. Otherwise, I don't know that they would do it, because I think they might fear that if you're going to get them out for this, what could happen if the tables get turned on them at some point? I don't know. Not saying everybody's doing this. I don't know. But I know that this team is not, this franchise is certainly not the only one. I don't know if the report will be made public. I think it would be good if it is, for everybody and for the trust of the league, for the trust of the organization. I just think it'd probably be a good move. And what I also know is that Dan Snyder's cooperated with the investigation. Spent a long time with them in the fall. I think it was over on one day in November or something like that. But that's what I know. And what I know is we continue to wait. And it certainly seems like this investigation could, the results of it could come out at any time. Anyway, that's what I know. Let's get back to the fun topics. I'll be back after this break with Nick Sundberg. I can honestly say this will be the first conversation we've had on here about dodging an infant's urine, and the term baby farts come up. That's a new one as well. Plus, what made him tear up during a game this season?
What's up? It's Mike Jones from the Football Jones podcast. I know you're enjoying your time with the John Keim Report, but once you're done, I want to invite you to come over and check out my podcast. Each week, we take a deep dive into some of the most pressing topics around the NFL. High-profile guests from the coach, player, and front office ranks, as well as the top league insiders. Check out the Football Jones podcast, another fine product brought to you by Empire Media.
Welcome back. Now here's my conversation with Nick Sundberg. Nick, kind of a busy offseason for you with the baby, your arm, all this other stuff going on. You're a free agent. Let's start with the good stuff. The baby. How is Nico? How old is Nico now?
He's about a month. He's doing well. We had about a 10-day stretch where he was waking up throughout the night about every hour, but sleeping for like 3 hours at a time during the day. So we've been working on trying to flip those schedules. I mean, as a parent, it's tough with newborns. But the last 2 nights we got a solid 4 hours in a row, which was really, really good, just for my and my wife's psyche. But yeah, everything's going really well. He's honestly, he's a super chill baby. So that's helped a ton.
It's funny because when we had our kid, like what I also noticed that just when they start sleeping through the night, they start teething. So just be aware that you're going to think like he's sleeping through the night. Oh, we're out of the woods. And then he's going to start teething. Yeah. So like what are some of the things that the fun parts for him with having a baby so far that maybe you didn't expect or whatever? What's it been like?
I mean, well, I get to do all the fun stuff just because I'm kind of incapacitated, I guess, with the brace on my elbow. Changing diapers is a little bit tough, but I'm able to finagle. I get to do let's just lay and hang out he sleeps so dang much right now that I'm just kind of here to help. At this point, just kind of running support for my wife. But we go on walks when it's not 30 outside. So we've had a couple of warm days here, which has been nice. He still hates the breeze because it's so windy out here in Leesburg. But just watching him, I mean, even just in the last month, go from not really knowing what's going on to starting to follow you with his eyes to realizing or to starting to kind of smile a little bit here and there. And then just little random stuff that you notice, like holding on to the pacifier.
Oh yeah.
He did that for the first time yesterday. Those little milestones are just fun to track.
has Tress called up and asked him any sort of trivia questions yet? Or did he give you a trivia questions like on the 5? Give me the 10 most popular Nikos in world history.
No, he hasn't. The only thing Tress and I were texting yesterday, and the first question he asked yesterday was how many times I've been peed on. So
okay, I was going to ask you that. So.
Yeah. So it's happened a couple times, but nothing too drastic at this point. I've been pretty shifty and making sure I'm able to dodge and all that sort of stuff. But it's definitely been super fun.
Well, that's the thing. Like my wife and I called it. It was our kids' fountain of youth, and like we weren't prepared for that first fountain of youth, so you kind of had to jump back and it did it.
It definitely scared me the first time. I was not. I mean, all of you viewers out there with boys. I mean, the first time it went straight up and landed on him, and I was like, "Oh no!" He's peeing on himself. Which I felt so bad for him. All right, now it's bath time. And he hates baths, so he's got that going for him. But it's definitely been a learning experience. I mean, we're kind of late to the game. I'm 33, my wife's 35, and we've been trying for a long time. So we're just so happy to be where we are, and just kind of overwhelmed, not overwhelmed physically, but just overwhelmed emotionally with being where we are at this point, and just so excited for him and us together and growing our family.
And it is. And so when you've had to try for a while and all that, it is emotional, and it is because you do greatly appreciate. I mean, and you should appreciate it anyways, but I do think there's a different level, I'm sure, in that situation. I know for us it was like that too. So that's cool. But did you get baby farts trending the other day by any chance on Twitter?
I don't know if I got it trending, but I definitely got a lot of responses because I think farts are funny in general. But I just asked when you stop giggling like a little girl when your baby farts, and the 99% of the response was never.
You don't. Yeah, I don't know. Like that's kind of like, well, you don't, and it. I'm not sure I don't think it ever becomes less funny, even as you get you think you get older and you should be more mature, and you really aren't. You're laughing at the same stuff. Right. So and especially I grew up with 3 other guys and 3 brothers. I mean, enough said. But it's but yeah, the baby farts are always gonna be that. It's funny too, because I just remember in those days, first of all, how little sleep you got, and there's all that stress that comes with it too, because my wife's trying to feed them and this and that, and it was fun, but it was interesting. And I also felt like when they get to 6 months, that's when they really start to take off. You see so much personality start to come out, and that's where it's kind of fun. It gets a lot more fun at 6 months.
Well, and I think something that it's the off season, so I've got time to be up in the middle of the night a bunch of times. Not a big deal. I have the respect level for, when I was younger, watching guys who had kids in season complaining about, coming to work and complaining like, man, I was up so many times last night with the baby up, all that stuff. I'm like, man, I don't get it. It shouldn't be that big a deal. Just whatever, you're getting a little bit less sleep than usual. Well, I'm older and I understand how important sleep is these days. And I could not imagine trying to go through this process in season. Especially, during COVID, neither of our parents could fly out here. We're doing this on our own, and which is fine, but I couldn't imagine it being, week 4 and I'm prepping for a game, trying to get my mind right and doing all this studying and all this stuff. And then trying to get my solid 8 to 9 hours a night. But at the same time, getting up every couple hours to help my wife with, feedings and all that stuff and making sure everything's okay, changing diapers and stuff. And, my respect level for guys who have kids in season just skyrocketed, because I think there should be a study done on guys and how they do it. It's unbelievable.
I know. I mean, just you played with Kirk Cousins. You know how strict he is with his sleep habits. Yeah. I don't know. You can't have a strict sleep patterns when you're for a kid, and if you're a pro athlete, and it's not as simple as saying, well, just let the wife do it. You're in season. You want to be a good father too, and a good husband. It starts there, but
right.
You can't just ignore that side to go over here. It's a tough juggling act.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the majority of guys want to help, right? So like I feel bad when I wake up and see her feeding him. I'm like, man, I didn't even hear him crying. She's like, don't worry, he wasn't crying. I woke him up, whatever. But it's just one of those things where for the guys that have kids in season, like, and I know it's totally random when you get pregnant and all that stuff, but man, my respect level just through the roof these days.
Well, let's go to your arm. How is your arm? It was your elbow, or was it what?
Technically it's a tricep.
Okay.
But it's so like where your tricep tendon attaches to the elbow is
right. Okay.
So that's why I'm in a stupid elbow brace. It's doing well. I'm 2 days into week 7 out of hopefully only 20. They said 5 months, but I'm assuming that means 5 months in weeks terms. So I'm kind of, 20 weeks is what, the process should be, until I'm told otherwise. Go ahead.
How did you snap with all that this year? Like, how bad was it for you?
I mean, it sucked, but it's funny. The older you get in this league, the more you learn how to deal with. Like, 2018, I was dealing with, really since for a very long time, I've been dealing with back issues.
Right.
And in 2018 is when it really, really got bad. I was having some severe nerve issues, the weird electrical pain shooting down my leg, all that stuff. And, played through all that. And then my leg went numb and practice, had 3 days of practice with that, until I finally talked to a doctor who was like, hey man, that's not a good thing. Or, that's a brand new symptom. Your leg wasn't numb last week. It is this week. We need to fix that, or could have some lifelong damage. But I think as an athlete, you just learn to play through stuff. You learn to focus through different sorts of pain and tell yourself that everything's fine and it's not that big a deal. And, it'll be fine. And so I think that's kind of what I did. And, I'm kicking myself because I keep telling myself, and I keep telling young guys on this team, like, hey, press for more information when it comes to injuries. And, I wish when I was younger, I would have done things. And I would have asked so many more questions. I would have gotten so much more information, but here I am in year 12 and I didn't ask for more information. We got an ultrasound, we saw a small tear in my tricep and they were like, yeah, it's not that big a deal. Like, we're going to modify your workouts, modify your snapping, your workload at practice, all that sort of stuff. Like, take some Toradol before the game. It is what it is. Like, all right, cool. And I walked out of the room. Not a big deal. Well, man, if I would have pressed for an MRI, we would have found out back then that my tricep was torn. Then we could have known, actually how I would have actually at least known the severity of the injury. Sure. And so, all the stuff that I'm telling these young guys to do and preaching to them and doing all that, I didn't even do myself. So like, I'm kicking myself for that, but you get into this mode where you're like, hey, they said it's cool. All right, I'm good. I'm going to walk away. Everything's fine. I can suck it up. It's not that big a deal. Like, it doesn't hurt that bad. Okay. I'm not going to bench as heavy as I usually do. I'm not going to do like overhead tricep work, and my snapping workload isn't going to be as heavy throughout the week, like whatever. But then when you actually find out what's wrong, you go, man, that really sucks. Like, yeah, because I'll be honest, it affected me mentally in season because I wasn't able to fully extend. Like, you go through, when you've been doing this, when you do something the same way for so long, you get into this muscle memory routine and everything just fires like all at the same time. You don't have to think about it. You can shut your brain off. You can do it in your sleep. And then something happens and you have an injury or whatever that starts to affect that muscle memory. So like the way that I snap at the football, I follow through really far between my legs. I snap the ball really fast. That's like my MO. I throw the ball really, really fast. And to do that, I need both hands to follow through all the way between my legs and like fully finish my thumbs underneath. Okay. But subconsciously, towards the end of the season, I started watching tape and going, why is my right arm like pulling out way early? and like I'm not finishing that hand. I'm going, no wonder I got a little tail there. Like my right arm's not fit. So then I go into practice. All right, think about focusing on your right arm finishing and all that stuff. And in games, like, all right, make sure your right arm finishes. Well, you shouldn't have to go into a game thinking like that, right?
Right. So
like it definitely affected me more than I thought it would. But had I actually known originally what was the problem, I could have been able to say like, well, no, duh, you're not going to be able to follow through as far as I usually am. Like my freaking tricep tendon is torn. Like, so I wouldn't have beat myself up so much throughout the season because of, a wobble here, there, whatever. And so that's the kind of stuff that I look back on and say, man, like, had I had the amount of information that I should have had in the beginning, I probably would have not treated myself so poorly mentally throughout the season, and it's one of those things that like the coaching staff never says anything, hey, we understand that you're going through some stuff, whatever, like a tail here or there is not a big deal. But like, to me, that's a big deal. As specialists, we are always our own worst critic. And it's just one of those things where like, I might have, I know I would have been I would have beat myself up less had I known actually what was fully going on. But
no, I say you also only get so many chances in a game. You want to be as precise as you can with each one of those chances. So if you're off a little bit on one, it could be 20% of your day.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's kind of the way I look at it. And, it's funny, forever I have this thing when I walk out on the field, I try and turn my brain completely off. And like, I focus on, it's basically like I'm like meditating on the field. I'm like focusing on my breathing in and out. Like I tune everything out except for like my PP. So DeShazer Everett's voice, right, or Jeremy Reeves later in the year. Like I tune everything out except for their voices, and gotten really good at it. Like, it's a really strange thing that like to be good at, which is weird, especially, when there are fans in the stands. Like I'm telling you, when I walk on the field, I don't hear, it's like crickets except for DeShazer's voice. And so like, you go out on the field and I it's basically like I black out. Aside from like, I know I blocked a guy and I know I ran downfield and fielder landed, whatever. I get out on the field or get off to the sideline, like, all right, Tress, everything good? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, all right. On to the next one. Hey, I feel like I had a little tail there. I don't remember. So he does the same thing as I do. He was no help this year where, when I was kind of working through some things, and he Tress is one of those punters that's like, hey man, if you hit me in this general vicinity, I'm good. And, I got nothing to worry about on that. And so he's super easy to work with. But when I'm working on stuff, he has that same MO that I do. He blacks out, doesn't as soon as he sees me like flinch and that ball start to move, it's like his eyes close basically, and his body takes over, and he doesn't remember where he caught the ball, how he molded it, nothing. It's just so he was zero help on the sideline, but it is what it is, so you go watch the tape after, like, all right, man, I felt like this one had a really bad wobble. Well, it wasn't. You frame by frame the tape and like, all right, how bad was it actually? Well, it still hit him on the hip, but it wasn't a perfect spiral. And all right, well, I feel better about that one. It's in our business, like there's a saying, like it's never as good as you felt and it's never as bad as you felt.
Right.
So I really started leaning heavily on that this year. So I know I kind of got off topic there, but
no, it's funny. Well, first of all, I want to ask a question about Tress in a minute, but how painful was it? How, like, would it, if somebody hits you in a game, is it painful? Is it the next day where you feel, because you're kind of medicated a little bit? How bad was the pain, and when would you feel it most?
It was only so I'm going to deal with this only in full extension.
Okay.
And then any rotation like this way.
Okay.
But so like pretty much every snap, but like, I mean, you get into this groove where you've done the same thing so long that like when your body, like I said earlier, your body just kind of takes over. So the majority of the time it wasn't like super painful. but like my body would block me at some points where like I'd pull my right arm out fat earlier than I wanted to, that sort of thing. Like my body would react in a way so that I wouldn't cause pain. And then there were, certain times where like if I'm blocking a guy on my right, I step back and I try and put my arm on him, and like he's pushing, I'm pushing, all that, and there was a handful of times throughout the year where that was not awesome. And then same thing, like running down the field, you dive at a guy and he hits your arm and it flies this way or whatever, or trying to lock a guy out, to who he's trying to block you, you're trying to stay in a lane, whatever, that sort of stuff. But I mean, it was manageable, but I prefer not to ever have, that's why I had the surgery. I prefer not just to never have to deal with it again.
You've gone through some things. How much pride do you take? Because you got to be one of the toughest long snappers in this league.
I mean, I think anybody that plays this game for any sort of period of time, it has a pain tolerance that is higher than most. Every single player is dealing with something. Nobody walks out on the field on Sunday feeling 100%. Like everybody's got something nagging or something, a chronic whatever. So I do take pride in the fact that I've played through a lot of really weird injuries. The broken arm, I had a torn meniscus I played through, then the elbow, the back. It's not like I'm dealing with a nagging hammy every week, some soft tissue thing. They're just kind of strange injuries, I understand that this team has kept me around for as long as they have because I think they see in me what I try and put out there. Like, you're going to have to drag me off this field to get me to not go back out there, and so that's kind of one of those things that I definitely take pride in, but I think I would be to my own horn a little too hard to say that the vast majority of guys that play on Sunday are all dealing with something, in their own way.
Yeah, and that's no doubt. With Tress, he seems like the happiest person in the league. And he's probably like the happiest. I mean, I still remember his first game as a punter. He had a great game, but you guys lost. And we go to talk to Tress. He's like, man, this was great. Because it was his first game punting. And it was just like, he was so upbeat. And he's so like, is his Tress. But like, does that guy like ever, what gets him upset? He just always seems so happy.
Yeah, Tress has a wonderful personality. He's the type of guy that regardless of the situation, he can find something positive in it. And he's one of those guys that just always wants to put a smile on your face, whether he can, and he's got this weird uncanny ability to notice, like, even if you, without any words spoken, anything like that, he can tell if something's bothering you, if you got something going on. And like, he goes out of his way to try and crack a joke or get you to smile, that sort of thing. And that's just the type of dude that he is. And I'm trying to think the last time I saw him mad. I mean, it's been years. And I think it was something stupid too. Like, we went down to the cafeteria for lunch and they were out of the dark chocolate covered almonds. And like, he was like upset, like, man, I was really looking forward to those today. Like that's one of the only things I can think of. Like, I mean, I've seen him around it like tons of times around his kids, out. Nothing gets to that dude. He's definitely got an uncanny ability to just be super happy all the time. And I think that's one of the things that I admire most about him is his ability to just love life at every moment and just be super upbeat all the time. He is absolutely one of a kind.
Hey, this is Joel Corey from Inside the Cap. I know you're enjoying the John Keim Report, which gives you insider access to the Washington football team, everything you want to know, which is going on with the Washington football team. Once you're done with that, check out my podcast, Inside the Cap, which gives you the ins and outs of the NFL salary cap and player contract negotiations. Check out these two products and other fine podcasts from Empire Media.
Another guy that I want to ask you about, Alex Smith, who, as we tape this, he was officially released today. This will air in a couple of days, but you were here for the whole period with Alex Smith. What did he mean to that locker room?
I don't know if you could quantify it, but personally, what I'll say is, so Alex got hurt, week 10, right? We were 6-3, played week 10. I ended up going on IR that year and having surgery week 15. So that spring, once everybody's seen the documentary, once everything happened and he finally got back in the building, him and I were rehabbing together. And I didn't know it at the time. Like, we talked a bunch. Like, he would show me his leg and I would, he'd, take the covering off of it. And we'd talk about all the scars and where all the muscles came from and stuff. And I was just in absolute awe of the fact that he was standing in front of me and all that. And, it was, I remember the first time that he was photographed throwing a football, I was the one catching for him. Yeah. They cut me right out of the photo, but I'm sure they got Alex, which is super funny. But after watching the documentary and thinking back to those times of, going in 4 days a week and rehabbing and doing all that stuff and just how positive and motivated he was, I was in awe at the time because he was wearing that big old metal thing on his leg.
Right. Like fixator thing.
I was in awe at the time, but then after watching the documentary and then bitching at him that he didn't tell me all that stuff, I had to complain a little bit because I was like, man, we spent months together rehabbing. You could have at least, told me a little bit more than you told everybody else, But and our lockers are right next to each other, I'm like, man, but he's one of those guys that when you look at him showing up every day, it just motivates you to push that much harder. Knowing everything that he went through, that, it's going to sound really stupid, but that was why I couldn't complain about my elbow. That's why I would never complain. I'm not, I had a few other injuries throughout the year. I had a tweaked hamstring, but it only, a couple weeks, not a big deal. A little bit of a calf thing, a hand thing, whatever. Just typical NFL stuff. But I'm not going to complain to anybody when that dude is in our locker room right now and is, walking around and practicing and playing and then eventually playing at a high level and all that stuff. It puts everything into perspective and you go, man, my issues are this big comparatively. And so when you have somebody like that in the locker room, it puts everybody, it brings everybody down to the same level. And you go, look,
right.
If he can do that, we can do anything together. That dude is so strong mentally, physically, everything. Let's all emulate him and try and be our best selves and learn from everything that he went through and just his mental toughness and fortitude and all that. And for the rest of my life, I'm going to try to be like Alex Smith in everything that I do. And that's what he instilled in me. I texted him today and just said, man, you're one of the best teammates I ever had. I understand this is business and all that stuff, but I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you as a teammate, as a friend, all that. I'm going to root for you for the rest of my life. It sounds super sappy and all that, but man, he's just somebody that's super easy to root for, especially being so close to him throughout, a lot of that process. And it's, I don't know, it's tough. It's tough.
As a reporter, I would felt fortunate to have a front row seat to this, to be able to write about his comeback, because it's such a unique story and such an awesome story for him to do to come back from what he did. And I think, it's funny because this is where, and I don't blame fans for this because they only see what's on the field. They see the stats, but you try to explain to them the impact that he had in the huddle and the locker room was tremendous. Because I remember even after you guys, in 2018, the end of the year, we're talking to you guys in the end of the locker room, end of the year. Well, what happened? What went wrong? Well, you lost Alex. That's what, everybody would say the same thing. And that wasn't Colt came in and got hurt, but it was all about you lost Alex, and just the leadership that he would give to the young receivers even. I just think it's hard to sometimes quantify that, but you guys feel it.
Yeah. And I think, just thinking back to 2018 in the run, the stretch that we had before he got hurt, I remember standing on the sideline with Tress, and something happened. There was like a long third down, like 3rd and 20 something. And I'm like, oh man. And we were backed up, like on the 5 or something like that. I'm like, man, this sucks. We're gonna have to punt from our own 5-yard line. And Tress is like, just wait. And sure enough, like Alex drops back, makes something happen, boom. And now it's 4th and 3. You're like, hell yeah, I'll punt from 4th and 3 from our own, 28 or whatever it was, or 20, 29 or whatever, or 27. And I'm like, this dude is never out of it. He'll like everything he does, he puts you in a better situation. And I remember it was late in the game. We were, maybe it was the 3rd quarter, down by a couple scores or something. I just looked at Tress and I was like, man, I don't feel like we're gonna lose. He's like, I don't either. And I'm like, why don't you think we're gonna lose? And he pointed at Alex, and I was like, me too. Like it's that dude right there. Like something about him. He's just got this aura where you're like, we will be in every single game we play, as long as he's our quarterback, and I don't think that can be disputed.
Listen, the record is what it is. I mean, with him, it was 11-5. With anybody else, it was 6-27. It's a hard. There's a, and I know, like, I'm not a big quarterback one-loss guy, but like there are things that he does that you could see, and sometimes it's just checking out of a play. Sometimes it's checking down at the right time so the guy gets more yards. Sometimes it's whatever, keep avoiding the turnovers, right? It's all that stuff that a guy does that adds up.
Well, and I think now just from a specialist's perspective, there is a giant difference between 4th and 1-4 and 4th and 11-15, right? Like, and 4th and 1-4 from our 40, or 4th and 1 or and 10 from our 12. There's so much more pressure put on a punt team because like, shoot, it's 4th and long. They know we're not going to fake it from way backed up. They're rushing, but from midfield. I mean, and especially, down distance wise, most teams around, 40-40, if it's 4th and less than 5, put their safe punt team out there. So Tress can take his time back there and unleash like a ball that hangs 5-0 and lands on the 5, which just gives our coverage team so much more time to get down there, all that stuff, and pin them deep, then putting our defense in such a better position, all those little things that add up to really big things. A lot of people don't understand. And I mean, Kirk, what was the year? Was it Kirk's second to last year? He had a very similar year to that, where like we punted, I think we only punted like 49 times or something like that, 52, some really low number. And I think like 40 of them were from midfield.
I do remember. Yeah.
Stuff like that matters, man. Like field position is everything in our game. And so
that was 2016. Tress punted 49 times.
There you go. Yeah. And it's, that stuff matters. And I think that gets lost a lot because so many people, like you just said, like so many people get hung up on like, whoa, what's his win-loss record and all that stuff. Well, I want to know, like, how many times did we punt? What was our field position? All that stuff. Turn out, those are the things that matter to me when it comes to quarterback play. Because like so many times I remember, especially that during that 9.5 game stretch with Alex in 18, we'd be driving towards midfield and 3rd down comes around. It's 3rd and 6 or whatever, or 3rd and 4, and Alex rolls out and just throws it away. And you're like, all right, I guess. But then we're punting from midfield.
Right.
They get the ball at the 8, and now they got to drive all and like, and then all of a sudden, defense makes a good play or whatever. They go 3 and out or short drive, and now we've got the ball again at the 40. It's like, the dude understands the game and knows that you're not going to win a game of one play or any of that stuff. Like the games are very long, and the majority of NFL games come down to one possession. Like if you do the math, It's going to come down to one possession anyways. So let's see how he's going to toss the ball away instead of trying to fit it into a weird window and turn the ball over. But that's just something that, I think he had a knack for and was, as a specialist I loved about him because, we punted from midfield so many times and all that. And, he was just such a fun teammate all around. Just such a good person, such a good, I got a ton of stories about him, but I know we got to get to some other stuff.
I'd love to hear those because like I said, I enjoyed covering him, especially this year because just because of what it meant. And it was like, just to get a chance to talk to him on a weekly basis and all that was it was fun. It was fun because, and I'll be honest, like after the last few years, I think for a lot of fans, he helped make you guys likable again beyond just the fan base. I mean, it was just different this year with that.
Absolutely. I think he created such a broader audience than I think we would have had otherwise, just because of his story and the documentary and all that. It opened so many more people's eyes to what he went through. And so many people wanted to watch the story unfold live. And I mean, like, shoot, I cried watching him go out there too. Like I'm human. I'm human. And like,
so during the game, you had tears in your eyes.
Yeah, hell yeah. We're friends. And like, all that, but man, I was teary-eyed too, standing on the side of them, watching him run out there against the Rams. Like, I'm going, oh man, and then the week leading up to him actually getting his first start, I was nervous too, even watching him in practice and all that. Like, we as specialists, we spend so much time on another field working on our own stuff that like we don't watch O&D and all that. We come over, do our special teams period, then go do our other stuff and start working on something else and do another special teams period and go back and do other stuff and then do another special teams period and go back and do other stuff and then practice is over. So like we spend the majority of the time on our own. We aren't watching all of his throws or all the defensive drills or any of that stuff or reps or whatever. And so like the first time I really saw him live was in game, which is crazy, because we practice together every day. It sounds dumb to say that, but so I was nervous too, just like everybody else. Which is, I know it sounds super super sappy, but I mean it is what it is. I was definitely teary eyed and nervous and all that, and I cried my eyes out watching that documentary. My wife I got up like it was like 6 minutes in. And she's like, "Where are you going?" And I was like, "I just gotta grab a box of tissues." And it was, it was tough, man. Tough to watch all that.
Yeah, it was. Two more quick things. Free agency. Free agency's coming up. You're in the last year of your deal. What's going on there? Anything, or what do you think? And have you heard much from them? And what's the deal?
So this is the furthest I've ever gotten in free agency. I've been a free agent twice, but the first time I got signed in February, the second time I got signed at the end of January. So I've never made it to March. This is the first time for that. But with all the new hires in the front office, my agent's been talking to everybody, and it's just, hey, we took a step back as soon as everybody got hired, and we're going through the entire evaluation process all over again and all that, getting everybody on the same page. They're still talking. We're working on something. I want to play here forever until, I want to retire here. Coach Rivera, Mr. Rob Rogers, if you're watching, Mr. Herney, if you happen to pick this up, I want to retire in Washington. So, I'm not looking forward to, I'm fully expecting to get a deal done within these next couple of weeks. I'm not sure the term length or anything like that, but fully expecting to get something done. I don't want to go to free agency. Like, I don't want to have to sell our house here and move and do all that stuff. Like, I've created such an awesome relationship with this team in front office and the Charitable Relations Foundation and the community. I don't want to leave loads of love and all that stuff.
Right.
I want to continue working on everything we've built here. So that's where I'm at. That's where I stand. 100% fully in. I know I got a little bit, a ways to go with this recovery and all that stuff. So, and it's a business and all that. And I'm coming off of an elbow injury, and I use my elbows to snap the football. So, we'll see what happens, but I fully anticipate, playing here next year.
Well, when we're done, I'll text those guys over there and say, just get it done. Put the guy to, just get it done. Last thing, and as you're the NFLPA rep too, what's going on with the spring? Do you think you guys will actually be on the field in spring, or are you looking at more the Zoom meetings and no field until the summer? Is that what's being decided now or talked?
I'm actually on the COVID committee for the PA. So I don't know how much I'm allowed to say because we're going into meetings on Monday, like our annual rep meetings on Monday, where we'll discuss with the rest of the reps and the whoever decides to come into these Zoom calls that we're about to have, because we're doing it all virtually this year. What I would say is realistically, if you look at the numbers across the nation, how many new cases a day and all that stuff, right. And you compare it to April, May, June of last year, I would say that we would probably lean towards going virtual again. Okay. I think there might be, who knows, there might be some wiggle room there for maybe rookies coming in and doing a few weeks of something just to get acclimated. But I don't, especially because you got to think about what it would take to have a 9-week OTA program. Right. You're talking about flying guys in from all over the country. Then you got to do a 6-day boarding, COVID testing, protocol, whatever. And then you got to test 7 days a week. So guys can't leave during a voluntary program, right?
That's right.
You can't. And now we're living during a pandemic right now. So guys shouldn't, but
right.
Each their own. But like if a guy wanted to drive down to Virginia Beach and drive back up, for the weekend, he couldn't do that without re-entering the 6-day testing protocol and the quarantine and all that stuff. So like, it's not necessary. If we do go back to last year, 2 years ago's, the normal off-season program, it's not a normal program. It's not voluntary. You're stuck here for 9 straight weeks. You can't leave. You can't, you can't hang out with other guys outside of work. And like, we aren't at work for that long. Generally, the first 3 weeks we're out of the building like in like 3 hours, and then it's like 4 hours and maybe 5 hours, something like that. So like you're talking like long days of guys being in hotel rooms in isolation. And then, you got to bring up like mental health of guys being in isolation, stuck, can't go anywhere, or, you can't even go sit at a restaurant because, well, crap, what if I get it? Then I'm stuck in all that stuff. So, I would assume we would just go straight virtual for this offseason as well. I just think for player health and safety and mental health, all that stuff, I think that's where we would have to go. But who knows? We still have to negotiate all that stuff with the NFL. Everything we negotiated last year was on a 1-year deal or a 1-year term. So we have to renegotiate all of that. So we'll see where they stand. I think once we have we've got a week of meetings coming up next week. Once we can kind of see where the majority of our guys stand on that, then our leadership will take that to the NFL and see where they stand. And it's tough because coaches want us in the building, all that. But, at the end of the day, we are in a pandemic. So, like, are these, few weeks of OTAs really worth it? If you've got especially because there are 90 guys on every roster right now. So you're talking about having to create multiple locker rooms in every facility. Like we had 3 locker rooms toward, about halfway through last year, we have 3 different locker rooms. And then at one point we had 4. So, it's not just about the players, it's everybody else in the building who is also now on lockdown for 9 weeks. talking about equipment guys, video guys, janitorial staff, kitchen staff, strength staff, trainers, front office, any tier 1 or tier 2 employee in the building is now cannot be around anybody at the risk of walking in the building with COVID, so it's super tough dealing with all this stuff, but like at the end of the day, we're going to have to make some hard decisions here coming soon. And I would just assume that because of the numbers across the country, we would fall back to everything we did last year and say, look, we went virtual last year. Everything turned out all right. Like we didn't play any preseason games. We still got through a 17-week season, full playoff schedule, all that stuff. Like, we can do it. I don't think anybody out there would complain about the product we put on the field. So, we've got a blueprint to do that again. If we have to do it for one more season, we do it for one more season.
And you got that 17th game possibly this year too.
Right. We'll see what
happens there.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens there. There you go.
When we get there.
There you go. Nick, I greatly appreciate your time. This was awesome. Always enjoy talking to you. And I hope that the elbow and the arm, the tricep, does not prevent you from doing a lot of grilling coming up.
It shouldn't. It's just too cold right now. But I'm getting pretty good with my left hand. What I didn't anticipate coming into this was how difficult it was to get a fork or a spoon to your mouth with your left hand.
Oh, really?
It is unbelievably difficult. Yeah, because I can't reach.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you can't.
I'm bent at 90 now, and I just got to 90 on Wednesday. Like I was stuck at 60, so I was much straighter before. So like I right near my mouth with my right arm. It is super difficult. It's like you just stuff's falling off the fork, and like it's a nightmare trying to feed the left hand. And I'm pretty ambidextrous. I do a lot of stuff with my left hand, but nope, can't eat with it. It's unbelievable.
That's funny. Well, maybe you lose some weight this offseason too.
We'll see.
There you go. Yeah, that's the thing. Like you can say, well, oh boy, Nick, you look in great shape. What was your secret? I couldn't eat with my left hand.
Yeah, there you go.
Peas kept falling over here, and the beef is over there.
Dropping food on the ground.
Well, you have a dog, right?
Yeah, he's 50 pounds now. He was 30 when I got surgery. No.
There you go. Fantastic. Nick, you're awesome. Thanks a lot, man.
All right, John, I appreciate you. Great talking to you.
All right, take care, man.
You too.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Nick for joining me, and thank you, as always, for listening. I'll be back with another episode Thursday, unless big news warrants an emergency podcast. Talk to you next time.